Welcome back to Base Sunday. October is Anti-Bullying Month here in San Francisco. The school district there is taking action with a Bye-Bye Bullying video contest. They've asked middle and high school students to create anti-bullying video clips. And here to tell us more about anti-bullying, please welcome licensed marriage and family therapist Jennifer Lombardi. How are you?
Great. Thank
you
for having me.
Coming. Well, let's start just at ground zero. You yourself were a victim of bullying, were you not?
Yes, I was.
Talk about that and what it did to you and what some of these kids are going through right now.
Well, when I was in particular in middle school, I remember growing up, and for whatever reason, there was a girl in my class that I became her target, and I endured, years all the way through high school, sort of intermittently. She would make negative comments about me, and just kept resurfacing. And no matter what I did to try to avoid that or to befriend her, she pretty persistently, sort of picked at me and made comments. And so I remember, missing days of school and trying to avoid that. And it really began to chip away at my self-esteem. And certainly over the years, for me personally, I developed an eating disorder as part of a way to cope with that.
And you're still, I guess, are you still in recovery from a
so fortunately, I've been in recovery from my eating disorder for almost 19 years.
Wow.
And while certainly the bullying wasn't the only thing that contributed to the development of that, it definitely didn't help. And so when I treat patients now, I hear many stories. And there was a study recently that was done online where they actually interviewed 600 people between the ages of 16 and 25 who were struggling with eating disorders, and almost half of them said that they had been, that bullying in some capacity had contributed, at least in part, to the development of their eating disorder. So there's definitely a link between the two in some ways.
And I was looking at some of the numbers. 2 or 3 teens are bullied each year. 160,000 students miss school daily just because they're afraid because they've been bullied. How about social media? How does that play into some of this now?
I definitely think that plays a part. I mean, when I was growing up, it was when you left campus, that was it. You could go home and you could sort of have bunker mentality and on the weekends be away from it for the most part. But now, I mean, it just follows you everywhere and you can't get away from it, from Facebook to Twitter, texting. It's everywhere. And for children, especially, now that they have cell phones as young as 9, 10, 11 years old, there's a developmental component to that. They don't necessarily know what boundaries are, and they're still in the process of learning that. And I think for parents, it's very hard to get containment around that, and to know, what's happening all the time, even in the best scenario.
What's the best piece of advice you could give a young teen that's going through this right now?
Oh, I would definitely say don't be quiet. Speak up and speak out, and reach out for support, from other peers, because the statistics are very clear. I mean, you said 2 out of 3 people in middle school and high school are being bullied at any given point in time, and so clearly you're not alone.
Yeah, and I've done stories out in Boston where kids commit suicide over it. They go home and they just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, it's the #1 form of violence in schools, and most people don't realize that.
Unbelievable. Well, have you seen some of the videos that some of the students here in San Francisco have put together?
I have.
What are your impressions of those?
I think it's amazing. I think when you give kids an outlet to share their own experiences and to speak from their hearts, and to be able to convey a message to their peers, it can be pretty powerful what they can come up with. Sometimes far more creative than we as adults can develop. And so I definitely think, when you give them a voice and give them an opportunity to speak up, they can come up with some powerful messages.
Is it getting better? I know there's been a lot of anti-bullying campaigns out there, especially with the Facebooks and Twitters and all that such stuff, but is it kids will be kids, I guess, right?
I think as celebrities in particular sort of take that stance and take, put forth a strong message. I know Ellen, I know Lady Gaga, many people have sort of come forth and talked about their own personal experiences. I think as long as it stays in the forefront and we don't just sort of let this be a flash in the pan in terms of a message socially, I think definitely we can make some strong headway in terms of making a difference for kids.
It doesn't matter, I know boys and girls alike, but is one sex more bullied than the other, or is one more the bullier, or is it just doesn't matter?
I think it doesn't matter. And I think the sad truth is that what you're seeing is it's happening at younger and younger ages.
Well, especially now with phones. I was at a 7th and 8th grade function just the other day, and all the kids, they've all got cell phones at that age.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even when you look at eating disorders in particular, I think, I've done a lot of prevention work in elementary schools. I've lectured in classrooms in, kindergarten, 1st grade. kids at those ages, they know, that you shouldn't be overweight. They know that, being fat is bad in our culture. It's seen as a bad thing. And so they're already being shaped and being told and given certain messages. And that sort of differentiation socially is happening at a young age.
What should parents look for?
In terms,
if they don't know their kid's getting bullied, maybe they're being real quiet about it and internalize it. What should they look for?
I always look, if there's a change in behavior in any way, if you have a kid who's been very outgoing and all of a sudden they become very withdrawn and very shy, if you have a kid who, somehow they've been very shy and suddenly they become more angry. Anytime you see a shift in mood, a shift in behavior, your radar should go up. And I think definitely spending as much time, we always talk about that quality time, but, turning the TV off, turning your cell phones off. Even spending time in the car, I mean, that sounds like a simple thing, and just asking. And I think the other thing, with kids in particular, sharing a little bit about your own experiences and growing up, I think can be a pretty poignant thing.
Communication, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Okay.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
More information about anti-bullying, log on to dosomething.org. That's it for this week's edition of Bay Sunday. We're back next week. Hope you have a good week, everybody. Take care.